Welcome to Gen X Adulting, and today we have Grace with us. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're so happy you're here.
Happy to be here.
Our first question is always, what year were you born?
1997.
Okay. So I'm sure, do you know that you're a Zillennial? You're a Gen Z, but you're the last Gen Z, but you're also a Zillennial. Had you ever heard of that before?
Never.
So a Zillennial is, you're in between the Millennials and the Gen Zs, even though technically, officially 1997 is the last Gen Z. But like your generation cannot relate at all to like the 14-year-olds that are Gen Zs. You know, that's a completely different life. But nor can you completely relate to like the 38-year-old millennials. They have a completely different experience. So you guys are kind of in the middle. You spent a decent amount of your childhood without social media, without technology, without phones. And then all that stuff showed up more in your high school years, right?
Yep.
So were you one of the first ones to get a phone, or did you come from a background where you were more, your parents kind of waited a little bit on that?
Our rule was going into middle school.
Okay.
Because you were going to start taking the bus then. So my parents wanted us to have a phone for the bus. You know, the bus is late, something happens, you have a phone and you can call them. But it wasn't, it was a slide up and down phone.
Yeah.
It wasn't a smartphone.
No, I don't even think those existed at that time. I don't know when. No, I don't think that was.
They were all flip phones.
Yeah.
The old Motorola ones, you could barely text on them.
I think you had to hit the number 1 3 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that kind of
So
thing.
your parents recognized the safety aspect of it right away, which is really commendable, because I think for a lot of parents, it was so new that like I know we held off for a while because we were just, I don't, you're in technology, so you were probably more comfortable with it, but I was more hesitant. But to recognize the safety aspect of it, you know, your parents were on it as far as that, because it makes such a difference. You know, and now we have a younger Gen Z, and I wouldn't even think twice about, as soon as we felt it was comfortable, we handed him the phone. Or with our older son, who's your age, you know, we hesitated more. So it's kind of that evolution. So,
Yeah.
but you kind of got the best of both worlds, you know, a little bit of an organic millennial Gen X childhood, and then right into the technology and the social media. So I always like to say that about you guys. So did you grow up in one town, or did you move at all through your childhood?
Yeah, so I was born in Miami, and then we moved when I was about 1.5, I think. And my mom still lives in the same house. So
Okay.
I was raised in that house. I moved away for college, was away at UF for a little bit, and then stayed there an extra year past when I graduated, and moved back home with my husband.
So your childhood is in one town. And do you have siblings?
Yes, I am one of 4, so I'm the second in the lineup. I have
Okay.
older brother, and then it's me, my little sister, and then my youngest brother.
So a busy family.
Yes.
Okay. So would you say you were raised in a traditional, was your mom home, or did she work? Did your dad work? Like, what was the background there?
Yeah, so my mom raised us, all 4 of us. She was a stay-at-home mom all the way through. My dad worked very long hours, busy job, classic Monday to Friday, and then also on weekends he would typically work, and he would take Sunday off, but Saturdays he would work as well. Usually.
Okay, so your mom had the load of 4 kids.
Yep.
That's a lot.
Yep. It sure is.
And where did they meet?
They met at church in Miami, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are they still married, or how long were they married?
No, they were married, I believe it was 22 years.
Wow.
Maybe 23.
That's a long time. And so did they divorce?
Yes, they got divorced when I was in high school as a sophomore.
That's a rough time for something like that.
They actually
So-
separated then, and then they didn't legally get divorced for a couple years. But yeah, it was
Okay.
a big transition at that age.
Yeah. And so how did that affect you and your siblings at the time, or at least speaking of your own experience?
I feel like I just had a hard time in general with trust at that point. I kind of shut everyone out of my life. My friends, broke up with my boyfriend at the time. I just kind of shut everyone off, didn't know who I could trust, didn't know who was just trying to get information from me, or if they actually cared about me. I just wasn't sure. So I just wanted to protect myself.
So up until that point, were you a fairly trusting person of your friends, of your boyfriend, of in general of the people in your life?
For sure. Yeah. I think I always kind of saw the best in people until they gave me a reason not to. But once my parents split up, I wasn't, I was kind of like, if these people who are supposed to be my example of love and what I know what love is from, and they broke up, like what's real? How am I supposed to tell, if this person really cares about me, if they, just want to gossip about me and my family? I had no idea. So in order to get hurt, I just
That
walled
makes
myself up.
that you probably felt completely disillusioned and like the rug had been pulled out from under you. And would you say your siblings, it was kind of everyone felt the way in the home, or?
I think we each had such a different experience. My oldest brother was the summer that my parents split up, was his last summer here. And then he moved away for college. So he was pretty much gone. My younger sister, I think, probably felt similar to how I felt. She was a little bit younger. I kind of felt like I began taking the role of, I always looked out for my younger siblings, but I really feel like once my parents split up, it was a lot of stuff was on me. Like I wanted to keep their lives, my younger siblings' lives, as normal as possible. And my little brother was really little, so he was in elementary school. So he doesn't even have memories of my parents together.
Right.
So that's all he's ever known. His childhood was completely different than ours.
Right. So you, as you just alluded to, so you probably felt you took on a little bit of parental, not responsibilities, but just making sure your younger siblings were shielded from some of it.
So more of a maternal role.
Yes.
Yeah. So would you, I don't know, I've read some stuff about eldest daughters and that they tend to take on a certain role, whether it's as a people pleaser, or if they're more compliant, or they just feel an innate responsibility for all of their siblings and for keeping the peace in the family. Is there any truth to that in your own experience as the eldest daughter?
I find myself, agreeing with everything you just said. I think I was previously, before becoming a mom, I think I was definitely a people pleaser, definitely felt, ever since I was little, I feel like my sister and I are 20 months apart, and I still feel like I was kind of mothering her when we were, 3 and 1. And then especially with my little brother, I felt that too. I do think, I don't know, I think partially I've always loved kids. I've always wanted to be a mom. That's always been something that's kind of my natural instinct. But I think that there was a certain point where I wish I was able to kind of just be a kid.
Did you feel that you were carrying a responsibility of people's perception of you through most of your childhood?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and as a result, do you feel that kind of identified you without you having control over your own identity? Does that make sense?
Yes, exactly. I think that I was kind of in this box. People thought they knew who I was, what my beliefs were, values, just kind of who I was as a person. And I feel like I was not able to break out of that until I went to college.
So that had to have been incredibly frustrating, especially through middle school and high school years, because especially in those years, the need to defend yourself when people misunderstand you is strong. But then in some ways, did you feel you couldn't come out and maybe right some wrongs or some misconceptions about you because of maybe how it might affect your family or a situation in general?
Yeah, I think there was always at the forefront of my mind protecting my family, who they are, reputation, everything I didn't want. I kind of just let my character take a hit, or let people have their misconceptions about me, to protect kind of my family as a whole.
And to give some context, just your family has had a place in our society, in our town, right? Just so people might be wondering, like, what with the family,
Yeah,
right? So so some people know your family. People in our town would know your family, not everyone, but so that's where that comes from. So as a result, did you feel you didn't really have your own voice for a lot of your formative years?
for sure.
And then this divorce happens. So you probably, you found a lot of identity through your family. This divorce happens and you're completely disillusioned and feeling kind of lost for a while. And that happened right in high school.
Yep.
So do you have vivid memories during those years, or do you kind of, did you kind of disassociate? Did you disassociate through part of it?
I do. There are some kind of black and white memories that I have, you know, finding out my parents were splitting up, all of those things. Some memories with friends, some weird things teachers would say to me, just kind of distinct memories that are in my brain. But I do think I kind of just shut down and walled up. So I think there's a lot of that that I don't remember, or that's blocked out.
That makes sense. The trauma response in some ways. So then, how did you view college? Was it, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of this space. I need a fresh start. Or were you hesitant to leave your family?
I felt like I wanted to get far. I definitely wanted to get out of town. I wanted to get, you couldn't just, you know, drive there in an hour. There needed to be a little bit of a road trip involved, but I wanted to be close enough for my siblings.
Yeah.
That was something that I didn't just want to leave them and feel like I was abandoning them.
Right.
Yeah.
So then UF was a nice balance for that. And so then when you got to school, was that really your first time where you could just be like that freshman year arriving in the dorms? How was that? Because that would have been really your first time to be you.
Yep.
Right.
I felt like I could walk out into the world and people wouldn't just look at me and say, oh, that's Grace. I know who she is. I know her family, da 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 da, and be whispering about me. Like, that's how I felt anytime I walked outside where we live before I went to college. And I got to meet girls who loved me for me and who just supported me. And I feel like I hadn't had that. I always felt like there was an ulterior motive for people having me in their life when I was in high school.
Like everyone had an agenda. And
that's awesome though.
What's that?
It's just awesome that you were able to get to UF and kind of be your own person, somewhat anonymous, right?
Yep.
And go find your own people, and it was more organic and real.
I could build my, you know, crew of who I wanted around me.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't have that opportunity up until that point.
No, you would. It's funny. I never thought about that, but you wouldn't have. It was probably fairly oppressing if you think about it. So you get to college and you get to know yourself for the first time. And what was that like?
It was really freeing. I feel like I had like these weights that I was just carrying around, and then I was just able to go and do what I wanted to do and not worry about it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It was an incredible experience. And to also have friends for the first time in my life who I feel like really loved me as an individual, as Grace, and not as, you know, a part of my family or something like that. It was just a totally different experience.
So you would stop trusting people really through your high school years. You get to college. Did it take you a bit to adjust to learning how to trust people again?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. There's this memory. The first night we all went out, my summer B roommate that's the summer semester at UF, was a triplet. And so it was like an automatic group of friends. You know, there were 4 of us and then their roommates. So I think there were 7 or 8 of us. And I remember the first night we went out together, we got lost. We were trying to find a frat party and we couldn't find it. We went to the on-campus house instead of the off-campus house, just like a classic group of freshman girls not knowing what they're doing. And I was telling them things about, you know, my family and all of this stuff. And I was like, do you guys still want to be friends with me? And they just looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, Grace, we don't care. Like, we all have stuff.
Baggage.
You know?
Yeah, everyone has baggage.
Yep.
Yeah, but you had gotten used to having to at least be perfect outside of your home for the reputation, and then that chance to be able to express some of your baggage and have them accept you for who you are. That had been just such a huge moment in your life.
It was. It really was. It was really special.
And then uh, were you able to trust, to have a boyfriend again, to trust men again? Like, how did your viewpoint on having a relationship change from your parents' divorce, and how did you find healing to trusting and having a relationship?
Yeah, so I actually had not really planned on dating at all when I went to college. I met this guy who then ghosted me. So it was just like a classic, you hear about college boys ghosting you and,
Yeah.
using girls and all of that. And that was my first
Ugh.
experience with the guy. And so I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm really not dating.
Yeah.
Not interested, gonna focus on school. And then my second semester, my second semester, so it was January of technically my third semester of my first year. I was at a friend's house. My friend one of the triplets invited me over to her friend's house. Said it was just going to be a group of girls hanging out. I really don't want to go, and I'm a very much of a homebody. And I walked in the door, and there was this guy sitting on the couch, and I just saw him, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna date.
So truly love at first sight.
Yep.
You can relate to that, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. So you trusted him immediately? Was there something about him where you just knew you could, or did he need to break through a little bit some of the shell?
Yeah, so that night we all went out together, we kind of all hung out, and then we hadn't talked to each other. He, I guess, messaged me on Facebook. I didn't see it. And he walked me home a few weeks later. I was walking home by myself. And he said he would meet me and walk me back to my dorm.
Green flag.
Green flag, immediate green flag. And we sat in the common area and literally from midnight until 6 o'clock in the morning, told each other everything about each other. Cause I was so set on focusing on my school and I didn't really want to waste time. I'm not a go with the flow type of girl. I'm very much of like a type A. I have a plan. I didn't want to waste any time. And I thought that if he knew everything about me, there was no chance he would want anything to do with me. So I just told him everything. And he said, I want to be here. I want to be your person. I want to help you through this. I want to do whatever I can and I'll be patient and I'll wait and whatever you need, I'll be here.
Amazing.
And I just looked at him and I was like, did you hear everything? Are you sure?
Yeah.
And I knew that night, I always say this, that he was either going to be the worst heartbreak of my entire life or I was going to spend the rest of my life with him.
Right.
And that was it.
And you met your person, but you also met someone who got you and wasn't going to leave.
Right. That was huge.
It's huge.
I didn't believe that. I didn't believe that, someone wouldn't just wake up one day and decide they were done,
Especially after, and I'm sure a lot of that's triggered from what you saw with your parents.
Yep.
So, did it still take you a bit to fully trust it? Or after that night, were you in, or were you still have that little bit of doubt for a while what was the moment where you knew, okay?
I think that at that point on, I knew I had to give everything a shot. I had to go, jump into this relationship with him because I just knew he was too good of a person for me to not try and see what happened. And then I think probably the first year and a half, I would do a little self-sabotaging, a little bit of, if I screw up, then he can't hurt me.
Right.
And he was just there. He was like, I'm not going anywhere. You don't need to be scared of me leaving. And I don't know. I think we did a lot of work together, a lot of work on communication. I mean, we were young. We were 19 and 18 or 19 and 20.
Yeah.
So we were really kids.
Yeah.
But we just knew we were gonna just work on everything together. And I think that was huge. Just knowing he just wasn't gonna go anywhere. He was just gonna be there.
Yeah. And what a life-changing thing, right?
Yeah. Life-changing.
To know you found your person that's going to have your back no matter what, and isn't going to go anywhere. And even though you were kids, at least for you had already gone through a lot of life stuff. So when you said you weren't wasting time, you were probably going to be the next person you date was for a purpose, probably for a potential husband.
Right.
There wasn't that you just had already gone through it. So you're like, you knew what you were looking for and what you wanted. And so when he showed up, it was like, okay, this is a go. And I'm sure that was incredibly healing for you to have that experience, to have your partner. And you both were at UF, right?
Yep.
So what did you study?
I actually was pre-nursing originally, and then decided it wasn't for me. I thought I was going to be very burnt out very fast.
Mhm.
So I kind of reassessed, tried to figure out what I wanted to do. Ended up changing my major to sociology and figured out I wanted to be a speech pathologist. So I just needed to get my bachelor's, and then I was going to do a post-bac program, and then apply to grad school. So that's what I did.
Wow. And UF is not easy.
No.
So how hard was it to change your major at UF?
I had to make a decision because it was going to be the semester I either applied to nursing school or change my major. There was not really a lot of time.
Right.
So I kind of had to sit down and really think like, okay. And like I said, I'm a planner. So I wasn't just going to change my major with no idea of what the next steps were going to be. The physical act of changing it wasn't hard. It was more for me not knowing, okay, so I'm not just going to graduate and get a job as a nurse. Like, what's going to happen next?
Right. And so did you guys graduate at the same time together?
I graduated a year early, and he was an engineering major, so his program's 5 years. So he graduated after me, actually.
So did you stay up there?
Yep.
While he was up there? Oh, and then did you continue with education? You said for the speech pathologist, did you continue on at UF focusing on that?
Yeah. So I got my bachelor's degree, and then you just need a bachelor's to apply for the post-bac, and it's fully online. So I did all those classes. It's the prerequisites to get into grad school. You just don't have to earn another bachelor's degree like with the general education requirements.
And that would have been your 5th year then you were doing that online?
Yep.
And then you went to graduate school? Did you do that up at UF?
No, that was down here.
Okay, so then you both moved down here.
Yep.
So did you just graduate and move down here? Did anything happen?
Yeah. So he proposed the weekend that I graduated.
Wow.
It was just a casual weekend.
Okay, so he saw a year left, right?
Yep.
And so the weekend you graduated, did you know?
No, I made a joke because his best friend was a photographer. So he was going to take graduation pictures for me. And I made a joke, had no idea he was planning on proposing. But I said, it would be so funny if you proposed when I'm all dressed up and we already have a photographer.
Right.
And he's like, Grace, why would you say that? You just ruined my plan. So then he had to work really hard to make me think he wasn't proposing that weekend. And he did. I fully believed he changed his whole plan. So I had no idea going in.
And so you're completely surprised.
Completely surprised.
And your family was there, right? Because it was your graduation weekend.
Yeah.
So that's perfect.
Yeah, it was really fun to have them there.
Is he also from the same area?
No, he was actually born in Arizona and then moved to Vermont and then moved to Tampa. So
okay, and then went to UF. So was his family wouldn't have been there that weekend, right? Because it wasn't his graduation weekend. So it was just your family.
Yes.
So how have the families blended?
I would say it's been interesting.
It always is.
Yeah.
Were they okay with him moving down where you're from?
I think so. I think that there was some pushback initially when we got engaged, because I was the one with the full-time job and he was the one who was still in school, which is not traditional. And we are both very level-headed people, and that was something that we had to explain to a lot of people close to us. It wasn't just we're getting married because it's what, we just feel like this is going to be a good move. We've really thought about this and we want to spend the rest of our lives together. So, and I think that since they've come around, but initially there was.
No, it's understandable. So, because I was going to ask you, because we got married at 23. So, and we were the first of anyone we knew, I think. And we got married in Vegas.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And after driving around the country for 2.5 months, to talk about people going, what is happening? I think my bridesmaids were in tie-dye. So
I love that.
Yep.
But so we understand a little bit about what you're talking about. But for your generation, would you say that getting married right out of college or quote unquote young is unusual?
For sure. I think that there's been a big push to kind of like, what's the rush? Which I totally understand. Some of my closest friends have been in long-term relationships and they're not married yet, and they want to get married, but they're not, they're both doing their individual things, and
Mhm.
whatever the reasoning is, I don't think there's necessarily a right plan or a wrong plan in terms of age. I think you mentioned earlier a little bit about having that kind of life experience. I think that that plays a big role.
Mhm.
And also just knowing, I think a lot of people think if you have problems in a marriage, have a baby and that'll fix it. Or if you have problems when you're dating, just get married and everything will be okay. And something I tell people is things are just going to get exacerbated. When
Yep.
you get married, you have to have each other's backs 100%. So if you're disagreeing, if these are small fights or big fights that you've had all through your relationship, they're not just going to disappear. And that was something we were very intentional on. We knew we needed to improve our communication before we got engaged.
Yeah.
So
I have a question there.
mhm.
How did you get to that point at such a young age? Because there's some wisdom to what you're saying, and you're still pretty young. Where did that come from?
I think for me, seeing what my parents went through,
Okay.
and I think for him, his parents were still married, still together, had been together. I think we also learned from previous relationships what worked and what didn't work. We both, that first night, we sat down and we went through what was good about these relationships, what was not so good, what could use improvement, what we were missing. Um, and I think the biggest thing was just trusting each other and not hiding anything from each other. Because I think that's something you see too, is people think if they really knew this about me, they wouldn't love me.
Yeah.
Or they're going to leave me, or they're going to, be unfaithful or whatever it is. And I think it's just to have someone who you tell everything to before you get to that point
Mm-hmm.
where you're locked in a marriage is really important.
Yeah. And did he also share with you as much as you shared with him before you got married, and share his baggage and his past issues or whatever he'd gone through? Was he as open with you?
I think that first night, we told each other everybody we had ever like dated and things like that. But in terms of family things or some more personal things, I think that came out more in our relationship,
Mm-hmm.
not so much that first night. I was like,
Yeah.
I have a question on that though. So you were entering it from a position of not having a lot of trust towards people, right?
mhm,
And in some ways, you and Nicole are similar in that.
Yes. Yep.
And I would probably, at least from all outside and viewing, or perception, I was pretty stable. My parents were together. And it sounds like he was. Were you guys almost opposites attracting in a sense? Was he kind of a stable force, or was there some extra? Not going into his world, but was he able to share and relate, or just understand? I guess.
I think more understanding.
Okay.
And he was kind of just like a sturdy, steady, level-headed
Yep.
place that I could always come back to. Still to this day, he will always be. He's very predictable. He'll always just be like strong and steady, and that's
Mhm.
what I needed. I don't think I could have had somebody with as much baggage as I had. I think that
Mhm.
would be really hard for me. Although we could relate potentially, I don't know long term that would be somebody that I could be with.
So he's almost already healed, and he helped you kind of heal.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's anyone who's listened to our past episodes, our earlier episodes, I go into this, and that's very similar to Brian and I's marriage. And we've been married almost 31 years and together 33. So
Wow.
it works as long as whether it's the man or the woman that's coming from the stable background, as long as they truly are stable and they
Mhm.
truly are. They understand you, get you, accept you, then I think it works. It's if people, I think sometimes people try to come across as the strong and stable and maybe haven't totally healed themselves or acknowledged that they do have some deep rooted issues. And then later on in the relationship, those come out.
Mhm.
And that's kind of a jump scare and can derail things, not always. So, but I think if that person is fairly self-aware and they truly are coming from a very stable place, then they can 100% be the person for someone who's coming from a background of maybe abandonment issues or instability, trust issues. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd agree on that.
I agree. And I think too, I think there's some, I don't know, savior complex a little bit that sometimes men specifically can have. And so I think you have to be on the lookout for that too. Just knowing that somebody might say like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, and kind of treat you like you're less than, and then they're going to have that power, imbalance. And so you have to be kind of on the lookout for that too.
You were so right. And I think when men do that, it's tied to their ego. And they're feeding their ego by quote unquote saving this girl, this woman. And I think a lot of times they don't want her to heal.
Right.
Because they feel better that they have someone they're taking care of. And then when she heals and starts to live her authentic life and her full life, they're threatened.
And that control is gone too.
The control is gone. You're right. So it's that fine line of trusting. Again, we go.
You're a smart girl.
Very smart.
I love it.
Yeah, no, but it's that fine line of being able to trust a man who seems stable, but really, don't just assume. Make sure those intentions are pure.
Yeah,
because that's a tough one.
I got one other question. Did your husband call your dad and ask for permission?
Yes.
You did. Okay.
He did.
Yeah.
We are both very he, walks on the outside on the sidewalk. And in terms of that was something that my mom told me with every guy that I had broken up with or had broken up with me to make a list on my phone, things that I liked about the relationship and things that were missing. And that once I got to a certain point in my life, I wouldn't want to just date just because I thought they were attractive. I wanted them to have these qualities. And one that I had in previous relationships that was really important to me in a marriage was that chivalry, like that that type of old
old
manners.
Yeah, no, it's important. I think it's a strong basis for a relationship, honestly. And I think it's up to especially the moms in the relationship, but the dads need to model it. I think it's very important the fathers model it, but the mothers need to also show that they need to back that up and reinforce how women should be respected. So it's a joint effort on the parents' part, but I think it's so important, 100%.
Absolutely.
And that was great advice your mom gave you about making that list. How old were you when she said?
I was in high school. I had just broken up with my boyfriend, so I was 17.
Yeah, that's really great advice. So did you have some girlfriends that didn't support you when you decided to get married, or that gave you pushback?
In terms of my friends, no.
Okay.
They were probably the only ones who we didn't get pushback from, because I think our friends just saw he was my best friend and I was his best friend, and they just saw the love and saw how much he supported me. And I think especially, my best friend I've been best friends with since high school, who we went to UF together too, she really saw the whole relationship.
Yeah.
And she was like, you finally found someone who can be there for you. And you're always taking care of other people, and now I have someone who can take care of you. So yeah, they were fully supported. So
it was mainly family that was a little like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I know for me, my mom so badly had wanted me to travel and have this young 20s life. But because of my childhood, that's the last thing I wanted. I just wanted stability and to start a family. So, but it's hard as parents. We have these dreams, but then it's understanding this is their life and letting them go forward. So
and how old were you then when you got engaged?
I was 21.
Okay.
I got engaged in May, on May 6th, and we got married a few months later, September 1st.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the other thing. It wasn't just that we were engaged at 21 and 22.
Quick.
Yeah.
It was that we were then getting married, a few months later.
Yeah. But you knew. Okay, so where did you get married? Down in your hometown?
In my hometown, in the church I grew up in.
Oh, wonderful. Cool. And was it a big wedding?
It was probably like 115, 120 people.
Oh, that's decent. And his family came over from Tampa, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you guys settled in your town, and I think you had said you were working, but he was still going to school. Was that down here?
That was up in Gainesville. So we got married down here, and then we went back up to Gainesville. We were there for about a year.
And what were you doing up there?
I was a preschool teacher. I was working with babies.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay, wonderful. And then he finished his education, graduated, and you guys moved down to where you are now?
He actually didn't graduate. So we moved in the fall. He had one more class and was kind of, he was unable to, he had to take the class in person, and we had already moved down here. And so there was a whole kind of hold up there.
Okay.
And then COVID happened, and the requirement for it to be in person got removed.
Oh,
So I
wow.
actually signed him up without him knowing and didn't tell him until after syllabus week. So he didn't have the option
No
to
way.
withdraw from the class. And he did the class every day. He was like, I can't believe you signed me up for this class. I can't believe you signed me up for this class. But he did it, and he graduated. And I said, you have one more.
Yes.
Like, you can do this, you know?
Man, that's awesome you did that, because he would have regretted it.
Uh-huh.
yeah.
He would have, like, you knew,
Mhm.
and you had his back there. So, and I guess the timing is perfect with COVID that he could do that
Yeah.
online. So,
It's going to be the only opportunity, really.
yeah, 100%. So when you guys moved back down here,
I have a question though before we
Okay.
get out of Gainesville. When you left your hometown, went to Gainesville, you start a new life, right? Did you reinvent yourself in any way? As part of that, and you probably got new friends and you could go out anonymously, but did you do anything big that reinvented yourself, or you know what I'm saying?
I don't know about big. I never really went out down here. I never like went to parties. I was never really invited to parties. People were always scared I was gonna snitch.
Yep.
So I didn't do any of that in high school. And so going out in Gainesville was the first time I really went out.
Yep.
That would be, I think, like the biggest jump, I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
so when you were in high school, would you have gone out and partied if you had been included?
I wouldn't have gone crazy. I think I would have probably just physically gone to a party and just to more hang out with friends and be social, not to,
Of course.
you know,
Right.
get drunk and
But then you feel, or factually, that you weren't included because of that risk.
Mhm.
People felt. So
Which is so unfair.
it's so unfair.
Right? It's so unfair, but
That
and
makes
not
me
what
so
happened to my
sad.
brother. My brother did not have that experience at all.
So
People
they-
were, you know, they wanted him at
it could be the life of
everything.
the party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think that is misogynistic? What happened there is because you were a girl?
I think because I was a girl and because people just thought I was this. I mean, I remember someone saying, you're just a stuck up goody two shoes, you know, you're just gonna get everybody in trouble. Like, people thought I was sending, I don't know what they thought I was doing.
Right.
I had people blocking me on social media because they thought that I was snitching on them. I don't care to do that. Also, I had all this stuff going on with my family. Like,
Right.
you guys and your
Yeah,
drinking
yeah.
are not what I'm concerned about.
Right. But so the misconception there, they
Mhm.
just completely assumed. And you know how high school can be, and middle school and high school can be, where once something's out there,
Oh, yeah.
it's hard to. And that brings me back to what we talked about earlier. You probably didn't feel like you had the freedom to defend yourself or
Mhm.
defend your reputation. So things just had to be out there.
Right.
And then everyone could just assume, but you really, there was no defense for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did your sister go through the same situation, would you say?
Her experience was so different because she was an athlete.
Okay.
So she had her lifestyle, everything was just totally different than mine.
Okay. And then what about your little brother?
I don't know. I feel like had a lot more physical freedom. Like, our parents were stricter with us.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think the last one, that's typical.
Oh,
Very much
100%.
so.
Yeah.
As Dylan came in after midnight last night.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
15. and he
you
was on a
know,
bike.
You know the common park in the neighborhood here, and we
Yes.
wouldn't let our other two go there probably until they were in high school,
No,
right?
Mhm.
7th grade. I remember
seventh
seventh.
grade.
He's been down there since he was like 9, I think.
Since he could get on a bike.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Dylan's rolling around town fishing last night until midnight.
Yes. So that's understandable that your younger brother, that's a completely different situation. But wow. So then you get to school, and not only are you having this experience of people knowing you, and for you feel, and you're trusting them, and these real relationships, these real friendships, but you're actually able to go out and be social and kind of quote unquote party a little bit. Not that you went crazy, but just to have that normal experience.
Yeah, just to be out.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Now I was going to say, what a wonderful time college must have been for you, and for totally different reasons than other people may say.
Yeah.
What a life-changing moment for you.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Pivotal.
Yeah. No, I could totally relate to that, in that I moved 3,000 miles away and was a totally different person. That's why I kind of semi-reinvented myself. Not reinvented, but took on things I would want to do as opposed to what I was sort of prescribed to do in the small little town I was in. But the question I have is, did your friend group probably completely shifted then, right? Are your best buddies right now more from your college years or your hometown squad?
Yeah, so
your buddies.
my best buddies, my best pals.
I'm trying to be hip.
No.
I totally missed the mark, yeah. I'm not trying to be hip.
So I have a best friend from freshman year in high school, who we've stayed all the way through, friends. Besides that, I have 2 friends, a guy friend that I've been friends with since high school as well, who we stay in touch. He lives out of the state, so we don't physically see each other a lot, but still good friends. And he met my baby and everything. And then another friend from high school who we don't really talk super regularly, but I feel like I've met besides my close friend from high school, my best friend, I feel like I've met my girls, like my girls, as more in my 20s.
Your tribe.
And I've always longed for that, and I feel like I never had it. There were a girl I thought was my best friend who was definitely not. So
that happens.
Yeah. And that was hard. Losing a friend, losing someone who you've had in your life since you're 4 and not having them it feels like worse than a breakup. It's so hard. So finding those women and having these women who've just been around me and been supporting me through so much has been life-changing.
Were those the same women you met in college? Are these college friends?
College friends, the triplets, yes. And then I think even post-college, I'm one of the girls I talk to every single day. We actually went to high school together. We had overlapping friends, but we weren't super close. But we both became moms within 2 months of each other.
Oh, that's cool.
We literally voice memo every day. 20
I love
minutes
voice
at a time.
memo. I love voice memo.
Our
And when you
like,
become a mom, voice memo is so vital because you really can't get on the phone.
Nope.
You can't.
No.
Even at my age with my kids, the age they are, but then voice memo.
Voice memo is so nice. You'll hear the dogs barking in the background. Our toddlers will be screaming at the same time. I can't hear what she's saying because my kid's screaming and hers is screaming in the background. But it's just, we just understand each other.
Yeah.
And we're just in it together.
And then you have the inflection in the voice memo. Whereas in text, you can't get that. Right. So just to go back a little bit to the friend that you knew since you were 4, did that end around the same time as your parents getting divorced, or was it later?
The nail in the coffin was her not coming to my wedding.
Okay.
So it was officially, I feel like through high school, she wasn't as good of a friend. I knew I would do things for her that it just wasn't reciprocated.
Yeah.
But I think I have a really hard time. Like I said earlier, I give people the benefit of the doubt. And I really don't like losing people. And I felt like I had lost a lot of people. And I thought she was someone that would maybe turn around and then I could, I just didn't want to let her go. That made me really sad. And we also were living close to each other, went to the same school. It would have been kind of a lot. We were, attached to everyone associated as the 2 of us as best friends.
Right.
So if I had cut that friendship off then, I think it would have been just kind of another change that I couldn't really handle.
No, that makes sense. And I think as women, as we have friends, a lot of times when we have a friend like that, someone that has been so invested in our life, it does take a while to let them go because once you do, you can't go back. And but then you do reach a point in your life where your time is so valuable and your priorities change and you realize this isn't serving me in any way, and in so many ways it's hurting me. I need to let this go. And it's sad, and there's you mourn, but in hindsight, it's the healthy decision, which I don't know if you've gotten to that point yet where you can settle with it and feel this is the healthy decision for where I'm at in my life?
Yeah. I have. There are times though, like recently I'm like, man, it stinks. It stinks to lose someone that you knew for that long.
Yeah.
Who you grew up with.
And you never know what's going to happen in life, but you have to keep moving forward, you know? So, okay. So you guys then settle in the home.
I got another question.
He does this. Yeah.
Sorry. Well, you're looking at her
I know,
so you don't see me. I'm
you gotta
almost
flag
like,
me. You got to flag me.
we've glossed over something.
Okay.
The triplets. I've never met triplets.
Yeah.
But where are they from? Are they like, how did that happen?
You don't have to give too much information, but just.
But they all went to UF together, apparently.
They did.
Did you guys live in a quad and there were 3 of them and it was you, or like?
So they decided they wanted to live separately their first year. They all made the joint decision. They also had an older sister who was 1 year above. So they could have very well just lived together and gotten a condo and, you know, been just them. But they really wanted to kind of, you know, fan out a little bit. So they each got roommates. We met on, you know, the Facebook roommate page. I don't know if people do that anymore, but
I don't think so.
Right?
I don't know actually.
My brother didn't for college. I think they just.
I don't know what they do now.
They do.
It's something with, it's got to be something social media based, but I don't think it's because none of them are on Facebook. I don't think anymore.
Facebook is like, oh.
Yeah, no. It's even a jump scare for me. I'm the age demographic, but it's like a dumpster fire, honestly. But I think they must do something. I don't know.
My brother, because he's in college, he said that they send out like a little survey, the apartments will. So I think they kind of do that, and the apartment will match you. So there's no talking to people unless you know the person and you're friends with them and you sign a lease together. But
wow, it's almost gone full circle because when
that's how we operated.
We didn't. In one of the episodes, I think I mentioned I wrote my potential roommate a letter. And I was telling our daughter Kai and her friends that in the episode, and they were blown away. They're like, "What do you mean you wrote a letter?
What did you write?
What did you write?" I think it was multi-pages.
Wow.
And then she wrote me back.
Scared the shit out of somebody.
And then we got on a landline and talked on the phone. They were blown away.
That's so funny.
But that was it. And then I think it went through the whole Facebook thing where you get to talk and know everything about each other. Now it sounds like it's kind of back to not knowing really. So that's really interesting. Just sidetracked that had gone back. So anyways.
So the triplets, so they actually went to the high school that my husband went to.
Oh,
so
wow.
they knew him.
Okay.
So that's why he was there that night that we met.
So you could get some tea on him too beforehand. Yeah. Okay.
They vet him. They vet him for you.
Vetted, triple vetted.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And do they live near you now, or are they back in their hometown?
They're back where they're from. They moved after college, and then they all recently moved back to their hometown to be all together.
But are they part of the voice memo group too?
We have a group chat. Yeah, I was actually talking to one of them the other day. We'll voice memo each other or call. Because I set a rule for myself where once a week I send one of my friends a text, just, hey, I'm thinking about you. What's going on? Give me your update. And typically they know I'm a big voice memo girl, so they'll voice memo back, and then I'll voice memo them, kind of fill them in on me, because I just feel like life gets away from you so fast, and there are so many people where you're like, oh, I haven't talked to them in months, but that one a week is very doable. So that's kind of something
That's amazing. I commend you for that, because you are so right. Because to truly stay connected with people, it's knowing that day to day or that week to week stuff that's going on in their lives. Then when the big things happen, you were kind of there as it was all building up. But the fact that you take the time, you make the time to reach out to your friends like that is amazing. Because everyone, I will tell you this, no matter what age you are, everyone is quote unquote busy. No one is not busy.
Right.
So when people say they're busy, and I catch myself because I will start to, and I'm like, don't say that, because everyone's busy. And everyone has priorities. So to take that time, to make that time for your friends, even if it's that one text a week, is awesome that you're doing that, and that they obviously are reciprocating.
Well,
So it's not one way.
Jen brought that up on a previous episode. Our friend Jen, our guest, brought that up, how she's our age, she's been the initiator. So she has these relationships that are 30, 40 years going, partly because she took the initiative. So
Yeah.
I think you're on to something.
No, you're definitely wise beyond your years in so many ways. But okay, so you guys then settle into when you settled here, were you both working then? Once he finished the class, I guess it's COVID, right?
Yeah.
So
So he was working, and then his job, they kind of shut it down during COVID.
mhm.
So COVID, and then I was done with my post-bac program, and I had some time before grad school. So it was the only time, COVID was the only time where it was just us two. I remember looking at him and thinking, when are we're never going to get this in our lives ever
Yeah.
again. It's just us two in our apartment together. We don't have school, we don't have work. Like we
Yeah.
had so much fun together.
I bet.
It's funny to hear people, not funny, but some people say, you know, I couldn't handle my roommate anymore after COVID. I had to get out of there or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just remember we would just laugh together. We learned new random things together. We played so many card games.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. I just remember
Mhm.
being like a kid with no responsibilities.
Yeah. I think that there are people that look back on the COVID time and loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and taking away all the sadness. So
Right,
I need to put that out there. But I know for us, like all of our kids were here, and we played games. We did swim.
Been a lot of
We
fun
all swam
family
in the
time,
pool.
actually. Yeah.
We had to celebrate our oldest son's birthday here, and so we set up each room of our house was a different themed bar,
Love that.
and we did a bar crawl in our house.
That's so fun.
And then I had all his frat brothers zoom in at the end,
So we got
and he talked to them.
Too tipsy there, but
Yeah, but we were home.
Yeah.
You know, but so when I look back, it isn't all bad because it's that quality time. So I think
Mhm.
COVID did offer people some of that and horrible, horrible time too. But you have to be realistic. There was that time where people had more quality time together.
Mhm.
So it's probably cool for you guys because you're married, you're newlyweds,
Yep.
and you get this special time together. So it's very cool. So then did you guys go back to work once COVID? Well, Florida COVID is a totally different experience than
Yeah.
the rest of the world. Let's be real. But
so it started in March. It was over,
over
in
in
April.
June.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when did you guys start picking back up and working, and when did that time end?
I think he went back to work in April or May. So it was probably a few weeks there where it was just,
Yeah,
hanging.
just
Mhm,
hanging.
mhm.
And then were you both working? Were you both were working?
No, I was not working. I guess was babysitting here and there, but I had that just a few months before starting grad school. So I was kind of just
And was that online?
relaxing. No, it was in person. Actually, with COVID, the first semester was online.
Okay.
And then the next semester, I believe we were in person for our clinic.
And then how long was that?
That was 2 full years. Yeah, 2 full years.
So, and that was to get your speech pathologist,
Mhm.
a master's
Yes.
in that. So he's working and you were going to school.
Mm-hmm.
So you were gone during the days and then you guys,
I had a lot of lectures online. So I had, like I remember on Mondays, I think we had 6 hours straight of lectures. Yeah, a lot of computer time, which was something I wasn't really used to compared to, undergrad being fully in person.
yeah.
And then he was working, so he worked nights.
So you guys were opposite a little bit.
Yeah,
And then once you got your degree, did you start working?
I did. Yeah, I started working. It took a little bit of time to get my license. The state of Florida takes a little bit to process it. And then I started working in a skilled nursing facility.
Okay. Oh, so you weren't working with children. I just assumed you were working with children.
I switched. A few months later, I switched to kids, but I was in a SNF initially.
So you're working with elderly patients.
Yep.
Were they like, did they have Alzheimer's, dementia, or why did they need the speech therapy?
So a lot of them, it was actually falls. Like they had been discharged from the hospital. They weren't ready to go home. They needed physical therapy. A lot of times, I walk in, I say, "Hi, I'm Grace. I'm a speech pathologist." And they say, "I talk fine. I can eat fine." And I say, "I know, I just got to ask you a few questions." And then a lot of times people don't realize we also work on memory strategies and cognition as a whole. And once they realize I'm the fun one who brings them food, they usually open up a little bit more. And yeah, so a lot of them had falls, like orthopedic injuries, and had also had maybe some memory problems from, medication that they had been on or car accident. They had language disorders like aphasia.
Or if they had a stroke, would you
Yep,
work with
a
patients that have
stroke.
stroke? And that, so would you bring them goodies you would bring them in like special treats?
So to assess their swallowing, we have different, food items, and one of them is like graham crackers and applesauce. And I would always make a joke. It's like a pie when you do the graham crackers in the applesauce. So that's sometimes a little bit better. I mean, they get the same food pretty regularly. If you're familiar with kind of hospital-esque food, sometimes applesauce and graham crackers is very exciting. So,
Right.
or Jell-O or pudding or whatever.
Sounds pretty good to me.
You gotta try it out.
Yeah.
I never would have thought about a speech pathologist in a skilled nursing center.
Me neither. I was thinking
No.
that it's a speech pathologist with memory strategies. It's a fascinating concept. Like
Yeah.
what's the approach there? What do you say trying to rehabilitate?
Yeah, so there's no way you can actually improve. You can't make someone's memory better, right? If the brain is altered in that way, but you can teach them strategies to incorporate into their daily routine. So I had a patient who their goal was to go back to work after they got discharged. And in order to go back but his memory was, impacted. So I taught some strategies where when you're on the phone, he worked in business. So when he's on the phone, you can take notes instead of just thinking, oh, I'm going to remember what they're saying. I'm just taking notes, having a calendar where you write everything down, setting timers on your phone for medication, things like that, where you and I might think about them day to day. But even now, I mean, I can't remember dates for appointments and stuff. If I don't put it in right when I'm standing in front of that desk, I will not remember when I walk out to my car.
Yeah.
What's the hook though, or the relationship back to speech, the speech aspect of it? Or are we thinking of speech in the wrong terms?
So there's a common misconception, I would say. People don't realize how much speech pathologists do. So it's speech language pathology. So language, and there's also cognition under that. So the way that our brain is working. And then there's also swallowing under that. So those are things that people don't, when you say speech pathologist, people think, oh, I'm in a school working with kids on their R's and L's, you know. But you can be in hospitals, and skilled nursing facilities, home health, all sorts of different.
I guess that's really true. At an academic or clinical level, speech is highly complex and then incorporates cognition and vision and hearing and speaking.
Yeah, so that language aspect is really what is more related to the cognition, I would say. Like those are kind of closer together.
Are there preventative things people can do to proactively ward off cognitive decline?
Yeah, so I know you actually had an audiologist on.
We
a few
did.
episodes ago.
Yeah, Dr. Farzan Dinesh.
We have room on the couch.
Do a duel.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So that hearing loss is actually a really, really, really big contributor in terms of cognitive decline. So I feel like the now I'm blanking on my words. The negative association kind of with hearing aids, I think, is improving a little bit more. People are realizing it's more embarrassing for me to say what, or to miss what people are saying than it is for someone to see, oh, they've got a hearing aid.
Yes.
So if you are unsure about your hearing, getting your hearing tested, physical activity is huge. Walking, talking to people, just doing things that really exercise your brain.
Yeah.
Those day-to-day activities, those routines are huge with the elderly. Somebody who, if they have friends who go on a walk, or they have bingo, or they have an activity that they're doing.
Being social. Probably the older you get, the more you're surrounded by people helps prevent cognitive decline, I would think.
Yeah.
You're
exercising that brain. You're not just, sitting on your couch and watching TV all day. You're doing things that are pushing your brain to work.
And to pay attention to the social nuances, to the social expectations when you're out and about. It kind of it keeps your brain challenging, keeping those things fresh. That makes sense.
Yeah.
We got a guy who handles hearing loss. So
yeah, we do. Watch that episode.
Yep.
But so then how long were you in the skilled nursing center before you switched over to working with children?
Just a few months. I was only there for a few months, and then I switched to a private practice for pediatrics.
And what were you doing with children there?
Lots of kids who had autism, or some other genetic diseases. Sometimes that's where a lot of times you focus on the speech, so the pronunciation of the words. the articulation. Also kids who may have a little bit of a delay in their language. So a kid who's, not following directions in school, a teacher might think this kid is just being stubborn. They're not listening. Really, they probably have a language delay, and they're not understanding the fact that you're saying, put the toys away, grab a marker, and come sit down. They're not processing that. They're getting stuck on the put the toy away. They're putting the toy away. They're standing on the corner of the rug, and everyone else is sitting down, and the teacher's like, that kid's not listening.
Interesting.
So that's something we would see a lot.
How do you help a child like that, that can only hear that first step?
So breaking it down to those one step directions. So put the toy away. You let them put the toy away. Then get the marker.
Okay.
Then come to the table. So it's 3 separate things instead of a multi-step direction.
So if a teacher has a child like that in their classroom, then is it you communicating with the teacher? This is how you need to give this student direction. So the teacher needs to acclimate for that student.
Ideally, yes. So it depends on how the school does services, but if the child's receiving services in a school, they'll get pulled from the class usually. Sometimes it can be in a group setting. So there are other students, more of like a social group, not as much of a one-on-one. I was in a preschool where 2 days a week, so we would do one-on-one services. And then you go back to the teacher and you tell them what you found that's worked and give them strategies. And I found it's very, very important to, a lot of times, teachers, their job is very, very hard. They're managing 20-something kids. They can't really have, an individual set of directions for each and every kid. So establishing a good relationship with that teacher from the start, from that first session, is really important. Expressing that you understand how hard their job is, expressing that you're there to make their life easier, not give them more to do. And also asking them if there's anything that you can do to make their life easier. They're usually more receptive.
And do you stay in the classroom and observe the child and even help kind of get that going a little bit?
For the first evaluation, typically, if it's in the school, if the evaluation's in the school, you would observe them in the room. You would talk to the teacher, you talk to the parent, you talk to any other kind of teacher or person that the child interacts with to get information, and then you directly will observe the kid in the classroom.
And is that a maturity thing? And maybe this is a synonymous term, but a developmental thing? I don't know what the line is there, but what is happening there?
The root cause. Is there a common root cause for a language delay?
It's hard to say. It depends. Every kid is different. But so sometimes it could be autism. It could be that there's something else going on neurologically. It could also just be that child just needs a little bit more support. There might just be a little bit of a they just need a little bit more. They need someone to pay a little bit more attention to them to kind of help them and give them the support that they need, because there gets to a certain point where if a child's not receiving services, they're falling more and more and more behind.
Yeah. Has a compounding effect, I would think. What age group are you talking about?
In my head, I'm thinking about kind of early elementary school and preschool, because that's who I was with when I was going to those preschools. And then, but also, I mean, it could be in high school, middle school. There are lots of things. A big thing we would work on with middle school and high school is a lot of those kids will have undiagnosed ADHD. And so they have a really hard time, talk about cognition, managing their tasks. It's too stressful for them. They're not turning in their homework assignments. They're, missing class. They're showing up late to school. Their laundry's not done. There are things, their day-to-day tasks that are too much. And those, similar to memory, where you give those kids strategies on what to do. And then also refer for them to get evaluated to possibly get a diagnosis if that's something the parents are looking for. That's something we would kind of see in those later years, that, something's not necessarily wrong with the child. They just need some extra support so that they don't fall further behind.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Do you find that that, like, let's say with high schoolers or young adults that have ADD or ADHD, that the tasks build up and then they get to a point where they're so overwhelmed they just are paralyzed and can't move forward with anything? And so they're kind of existing in a state of chaos. And so if somebody were to come, like, what would be the solution? I guess you said it is start with just one thing at a time, like teaching them how do you teach them how to take on regular tasks?
I think building up that confidence is huge, especially boys, I think. I mean, with girls too, but I think with boys, there's less of a desire to ask for help. And so I think just starting with small things that you know that they can do, you know, making a phone call and something really simple, calling their dad, calling their mom and asking them a question, right? And you're like, okay, that's not something they're struggling with, but that's something that's going to build their confidence a little bit more. I physically in grad school would write everything down, and I had a paper planner. I don't know if kids are doing that these days, maybe Google Calendar or something.
I don't know if they're doing anything. I really don't. I don't know if they're
GPT. They're just cheating.
I don't know. I know that our youngest son does not use a planner, and he was given planners in middle school. I don't know if any of his friends used it, which I, like you, I use a planner and I write in it every single day.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if our older two, who are closer to your age, use planners. Our daughter might, but so I don't know if that's a personality thing or a generational thing. But I don't know how people survive without planners.
It. I couldn't. My husband and I have an app on our phone called Time Tree that we put in doctor's appointments, work schedule, everything, because it's too much. You can't hold it all in the brain, and those are things that are adding to your mental load when you don't need to be. So those are the strategies that you need to implement so that when you need your memory for things, it's not like this is adding on top of it. This is something you don't need to worry about. That's on your phone. That's good.
It's so true, because there is so much going on in life. So you have all those day-to-day to-dos. So unpack them onto your planner.
Right.
Take them out of your brain, put them, because once I do that, it leaves my brain, and then I open up space for things I need to be worrying about in that, or thinking about in that present moment.
Exactly.
So you're right. Where somebody has ADD, it's just teaching them, take your task, unpack it somewhere so that you now have open space to focus on the immediate thing you need to work on.
Right.
And so, if that was not caught in elementary school, middle school, high school, you have young adults that are out there in the world trying to function and maybe feeling like they're failing at life, when really they just were never taught the skills they need to organize. We're all dealing with these tasks every day. So it's just maybe they weren't taught those skills on how to cope with that.
Right. That's something that just sitting down and, okay, let's take out your folder. Have we opened your folder yet today? Let's take it out and let's look at everything. And so I think that's part of it too, is showing that those daily tasks aren't scary. They're not something to be scared of. They're very tangible. You can handle them. And that's part of that confidence building.
Now, do you think that your generation, the Gen Z, I would say generation, the early 20s, mid 20s, do you think they have more anxiety than other generations? Or do you think they just feel more comfortable expressing it? Or do you think some of it is this, where they were not taught how to manage the basic load of life, and now that they're in life, they're completely overwhelmed and have anxiety about things, even making a doctor's appointment?
I think it's probably a little bit of everything, which I know is not super helpful, but I think too, something about that Gen Z and younger generations is the technology is it's taking up so much of the day to day, so much of the brain. You're also looking at what everyone else's life is, and you're like, wow, they're doing so much. And what's the point in even turning in my homework assignment? Because I'm never going to get that mansion that YouTuber has, or whatever, you know what I mean? So I think there is part of that. Also, because we have so much technology and everything is at our fingertips, there's almost this, it's absent, like using that technology to our benefit, using those apps, using that Google Calendar, setting those alarms, all of those things. It's almost like it's so accessible that it's not being used in the most beneficial way.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Technology, that's probably one of the things that's different than other generations that are older.
Yeah, there's so many tools nowadays to accomplish what you're talking about, but
but then
are
also
they leveraged properly or correctly or to the best of their ability? It's hard to tell.
And the overload and the FOMO, and the comparison and all of it.
Constant mental stimulation.
It's overwhelming.
Constant. Yeah. I find myself overstimulated. I mean, the amount of times that I don't even listen to the radio in the car. If I'm in the car, if I get a car ride by myself without my baby or my husband or a dog, radio's off.
That's that is you time, girl. That is you time. Oh my gosh.
It's so funny you say that, because Nathan and I, if we're in the car, I don't turn on the music. It's the first thing he does. He's like, how do you do that? I'm like, dude, it's quiet.
It's quiet.
I mowed the lawn this morning, and normally I had my headphones in my pocket, and I was like, I'm just going to listen to the birds and the lawnmower and just, I want to turn it off.
It's from the break of stimulation.
Yeah.
It's giving, and that is probably something that is going to be I could see be a whole new thing to kind of swing the pendulum back a little bit, because this Gen Z, and especially younger Gen Z, is all technology and scrolling and their brain. So tips to unplug, I bet, are going to be a new thing where you need to have this much time, and these are the ways you need in order to balance your brain back out. So to get it not so overstimulated. So
I have a question on the kids you were working with. They make it mislabeled or misunderstood as maybe not being smart or immature, but maybe they are overwhelmed, right? Did you find, though, that some of them are kind of quiet geniuses? Was there an element of that?
There is, I think, because a lot of times kids know what, even my daughter, who's 1.5 years, she knows if, they listen to everything. They pick up on things. If teachers are constantly in the classroom, oh, that kid just doesn't listen. Johnny just doesn't listen. Whoever doesn't listen. They just, so dumb. Things like that. Like these kids, their confidence is plummeted. And these are 4, 5, 6-year-olds, even a middle schooler, high schooler. Yeah. So having someone who finally will sit there and say, hey, what are you experiencing? What are you feeling? Someone who's a little bit older, or just telling, like, one of my phrases that I would tell my little preschool kids was, I can do hard things, because they would just shut down at taking a cap off a marker. Even though they could physically do it, it would be too overwhelming, because they're used to being 5 steps behind compared to their peers. So just encouraging those kids and being kind of that person who will speak up for them, saying positive things in front of them, to their teacher, to their parents, saying, they are listening. Kids are listening.
I don't think they're tuning out the world. There's maybe just more going on. And that might be the misconception. It's not like they're ignoring you or didn't hear you. They're processing it differently. Right. And you're tapping into that. It's a cool thing. And
validating them and seeing them and helping them feel understood. Someone gets them. Even if you're still also figuring out where they're at, you at least are taking that moment to be like, okay, I know things, you're thinking differently, and I want to hear what you're going through, and let's help. I'm here to help you. Just that probably makes such a difference. Yeah. How long are you still doing that, or how long did you work with the kids?
So I worked all the way up until the time I left for when I was gonna give birth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got pregnant.
So I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah. Let's go back.
We're on tangents.
Yeah. Okay. So did you guys want to start a family early?
That was part of the concern everybody had, I think, was that I was just going to get pregnant, and, I was going to be so young and never have my own career and all of that stuff. But I knew I didn't want to get pregnant right away. I wanted to have time with just us. So we had said probably around 5 years, baby would either be there or I would be pregnant. So I got pregnant right after graduation from grad school. And then about a month later, I had a miscarriage, which was devastating. Yeah. We didn't necessarily plan to get pregnant that time. There was no planning at all, but it was more of like we'll see what happens. And yeah, I was fully, once you find out you're pregnant, your whole future, all you're imagining is life with that baby.
Yes.
So having that gone was just crazy.
Yeah. How would you, and I'm sure there's many women that can relate to this, unfortunately, but how would you describe to someone that experience as a woman? Because I think people are scared to ask, and I think people are scared to talk about it. And I think it's an important thing. I think people should feel comfortable talking to women who've gone through this and not be scared to bring it, to want to know.
Yeah. I think my generation I feel like it was very taboo. Maybe I don't know about your generation,
Yes,
but
yes.
before that for sure. And
Yes.
yeah, I assumed your generation, but I wasn't 100%.
100%.
But 1 in 4 women have had a miscarriage. So that is very common. And
Yeah.
I actually, a girl I went to high school and college with had posted about her miscarriage on Instagram. And because of her sharing, I felt comfortable to reach out to her when I went through it. And it just made me feel less alone. There were multiple women who had texted me that they, a year later, 6 months later, that they had had a miscarriage and they wanted to talk to me because I had shared about it on social media, because I wanted to kind of just let other women know that they were not alone. It feels very isolating.
Mm-hmm.
It feels just devastating, very frustrating. It feels like it's your fault. It feels like your body, to me, it felt like my body failed me. Like I was supposed to carry a baby. And I also do have some anxiety, and I felt so calm the whole pregnancy. Though it was short, I felt like everything was under control. I felt like this baby was supposed to be there, so everything had to be fine. So it didn't make sense. Wouldn't I have felt anxious? Wouldn't I have felt like wouldn't I have known it was coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being so calm.
Mm-hmm.
So that just felt like, it just felt misleading, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would I get pregnant? Why would I go through this if
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to have this baby?
That makes
it's not
sense.
fair.
Totally not fair.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. It was just crazy. The whole thing.
And it's a shock. It's not like, to your point, there isn't a warning, right? It's just, you just haven't, it's not like it's coming.
Right.
So you're humming along and then it happens. And so it's such a shocking loss because you're so in it. And then you have to adjust to that loss and change the trajectory of your life again while still mourning the loss of a child. I think that's something that some people don't fully grasp, is women who've had miscarriages have lost a child.
Yeah.
And so they are dealing with child loss, and that will never leave them for the rest of their life. And I think that deserves to be honored more, personally. And I hope your generation does change the narrative on that for generations coming up behind you, and that women feel comfortable sharing, talking, supporting, and it'll help the men in their life too, and help boys and men understand what women go through. Because, and the men go through the loss too. Is that what you were about to say?
No, I'm curious. Why don't you girls talk about it, or women talk about it? Why is it so taboo?
As far as a miscarriage for our generation, Gen X, it was one of those things that it's sad. It's like some people don't feel comfortable talking about death or when someone dies. And it's something that the woman doesn't, in Gen X, women didn't openly share. And so you just didn't talk, kind of like menopause.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
it's the theme.
The women before us didn't talk about, our mothers, our grandmothers. We probably didn't even know how many miscarriages the women in our family had. They didn't tell you.
Moved right along.
They just moved right along, and you come to find out, oh no, Aunt so and so had 4 miscarriages. It's
My
like,
mom had a
what?
couple, I think, before she had me. Right, between my sister and me, I think. What'd she say? 2 or 3?
2, I think. But you just found that out in the last few years, right?
Yeah,
or as an adult, it's not like you grew up in your home knowing what your mom was going through.
No.
Right. Yeah. So that's our generation. And we're trying to change the narrative on menopause right now. And I'm hoping that your generation will also change the narrative on women who have miscarriages, because I think women deserve to have that space to grieve and mourn and be respected. And I think people should feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah. People also say really weird things to you. When you were saying it's losing a child, I had someone say, oh, one of my friends, she gave birth and her baby, passed away a week later. And I just think that that's harder than a miscarriage. And
my God, like there's a scale.
Right.
But I think for some people,
they just don't, you can't grasp. It's so strange being pregnant. It's like you're growing this human in your body, yet you have no control. I mean, you can eat the right things and take your vitamins and, exercise safely and do certain things, but ultimately you have no power over what's happening.
Yes.
And
100%.
That's a strange feeling.
It makes you so vulnerable because you already love your baby.
Right.
And so one thing about children is when you become a parent or you get pregnant, it starts right then. you wear your heart on your sleeve, and then your heart leaves.
Yeah.
And you have to pray to God every day they're okay. Like mine are in Colorado right now. But it's as soon as you get pregnant, that vulnerability hits. And I don't know if for men it hits as soon as when the baby's handed to them.
Yeah.
That's what it was for my husband.
Yeah. And then they get more what we've been going through for the last
whole
9
time.
months. Yeah. It's like that feeling of you love that baby, you know, and you become a mother the minute you become pregnant, you know, and so when you lose the child, it's a mother that's lost a child. And I think that's the narrative that isn't quite connecting.
I'm going to get shit on for this, but
you always say that,
but it has to be, it's easier for men because we're not carrying the child. Our body's not going through those changes.
Yeah.
And to your point, you don't have your child as at least for me, and I'll take the lumps, whatever. But once the doctor or nurse hands the baby to you, it's like, oh, now it's really, really real. And you go to ultrasounds, you see the pictures, you hear the heartbeat, and that stuff's amazing. But it's different for men.
It is.
It doesn't quite hit the same. Because I mean, I was thinking about the second I found out I was pregnant, what I was eating. I stopped drinking coffee. I didn't run because I was nervous about falling. You know, my husband, so I had the miscarriage and then I ended up getting pregnant again.
Was it soon after?
A lot sooner than I was thinking it was going to be. I remember my sister-in-law saying it really helps to be pregnant by the due date of the first baby. And I remember when she said that to me, I was just like, there's no way that's going to happen. I'm not going to be ready to have a baby and be pregnant in 6 months. There's just no way. And I was like, it feels wrong to get pregnant before that baby was supposed to be here. It feels like I'm trying to replace them. It's just so, and these are the things where it's just so helpful to talk to somebody else, because you sound a little crazy, or you sound a little like dramatic or whatever it is. People are like, what's the big deal? You know, just get pregnant, again.
Yeah.
You know, there's also the fear of having another miscarriage. I remember someone said to me, oh, I know someone who had 6 miscarriages in a row and then they had their baby. And it's like, that's supposed to make me feel good right now.
Because it's traumatic.
I love your statement around people say the weirdest things, right?
Yeah.
That's so true, I guess.
think it's coming from a place where they don't know what to say. And they're trying to say something on the topic because they think that's going to help.
Yeah.
But the thing about loss and the thing about trauma is it's okay to just say what you're going through really sucks. And it's really hard. And I don't know what it's like, but I just want you to know I'm here to support you and I'm thinking about you.
Yeah.
Great
You don't
advice.
have to, reinvent the wheel there. Like sometimes just knowing that you can cry with me, you can laugh, we can talk about stupid stuff, we can forget and just, gossip if you wanna, like whatever it is.
Right.
People want to fix things.
Yes.
I'm a fixer. So if that happened to her, I'd say I'd come up with all kinds of wild, crazy stuff.
To try to help.
Just to try to help.
Try to help and to try to ward off more emotional, not tragedy, but just to try to ward off more emotions. They want to make it better.
Yeah.
So, but so many times that's not what we need.
How old were you when that happened?
Let's see. I got to do a little math here. I was 26, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, you're still young either way, but either way, that's just young.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the fear of having another one. So I would say when a woman has a miscarriage, it's very courageous to get pregnant again because you're putting yourself back in that hyper vulnerable place. But this time, the risks.
Yeah.
You don't know the risks the first time.
The first time you're just like, this is pure bliss. I'm growing a baby. I mean, not necessarily. You may be, nauseous and going through all the things, but you're still thinking about how special it is to carry this life. And then, I said to my husband, I don't want to declare we're trying again because that feels very like there's just a lot of pressure on me. I'm going to be really stressed out and anxious. And I don't want this to feel like a chore of like, we need to get pregnant right now. I just wanted it to kind of be not whatever happens, but just less,
pressure.
Black and white. Yeah.
And also because people then what you would feel, people are kind of wondering, like, did she get pregnant this time? Maybe the people close to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, where you kept it private.
Yeah.
So how long was it between the time of the miscarriage and you got pregnant?
A few months. I think I like my hormones kind of settled down. And then I found out I was pregnant, I think in early December. So I
Okay.
had the miscarriage in September.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you feel when you found out you were pregnant? Because I'm sure everyone would think it's immediate, 100% celebration, wonderful. But was it a little mixed because you had just had the miscarriage?
Yeah, I was so anxious. I was really stressed. And that's when I had reached out to that girl who had shared about her miscarriage from my high school because she had a son. And so I said, hey, just wondering, how did you, because it was still really early. I didn't want to tell anybody I was pregnant really. Like, how did you handle being pregnant after loss? I'm kind of trying to mentally prepare for that. And she said, I know this sounds really, funky, but I wrote some affirmations on my mirror and I would say them every morning and they just really helped me. And so that's what I did. She sent me some that she said, and mine were, my body's doing everything right. Today I'm pregnant. You're the best mom to your baby. I think there was one more, but that just helped me. That today I'm pregnant helped me so much because I would just worry, okay, what if I lose this baby tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
What if I go through this again?
It helped you stay in the present.
Mm-hmm.
And then how long was it? Was it till the second semester that you finally eased your anxiety, or did you ever lose your anxiety?
The day of the birth.
Never.
Right?
I remember I always would think like, okay, once we get to the point of viability, I'll feel better. Once I get to the third trimester, I'll feel better. Once I get to the delivery room, I'll feel better. I swear it was like the devil was trying to pull on my heart and just take my joy away, because I would go on Facebook and I would see gave birth to a stillborn baby at 37 weeks when nothing was wrong the whole pregnancy, like video after video. And I hadn't looked at any of that up. It wasn't, it was just, so I deactivated my social media because I was like, this is not doing me any good.
Yeah.
And my OB was so relaxed, so professional, but also so relaxed. I remember the first appointment, I was like, I had some salad dressing that had whey protein in it, and I Googled it, and you can't have whey. Is my baby going to be okay? And she looked at me, grabbed my hand and said, you have to stop Googling.
Yeah.
You're going to drive yourself insane.
Yeah.
You can have the salad dressing.
Yeah.
Don't drink alcohol.
Yes.
And don't eat raw fish, and manage your caffeine. But besides that, like,
yeah,
it's okay.
It's okay. So were you able to find the joy in the pregnancy with all these little tools that were given to you?
I think once she started moving, I remember doing the kick counts, laying down, drinking something cold, laying down and counting and panicking. And my husband would be like, she does her dance routine every night at 3 a.m. She's sleeping right now. He would just, when we talked about him being level-headed and grounded, like he would just bring me back down.
Yeah.
But helping her, it helps a lot to have her move, and I could feel her kick. Like, okay. I also, once we knew she was a girl, and once we knew we were naming her the name I had been set on since I was 13. I would talk to her every morning on my drive to work. Mm-hmm. And that just helped me just stay in the present and just kind of ground myself.
And how was your birth? Was it pretty uneventful, or were there any major emergencies?
No, it was, she came on her due date. My water broke at first watch.
No way.
Yeah, we were at breakfast. I went to the bathroom and I was like, hey, I think my water broke. And my husband said, well, the food just got here and we're going to have to eat. So just sit down and eat your breakfast.
That is such
I
a
like your
husband
husband.
thing.
He's
That
my
is
kind of
something
guy.
you would say. Oh my gosh.
Man.
So funny. I was like, okay.
I think we need boxes.
Yeah, can we get this to go?
Oh, he's my guy.
He would have boxed it all up and brought it to the hospital that night.
Mm-hmm.
But everything went okay.
Yeah, everything was good. She came relatively quickly.
How big was she?
7'15".
Oh.
Yeah.
And how long was she?
21.5 inches.
Oh, she's long.
Mm-hmm.
And so that moment when they handed, what are you laughing about?
I don't know if I've ever heard how long was the baby. It's
Really?
always weight. Yeah.
Oh, I know the
I don't
weight
know
and the
how.
length.
Yeah, I don't know any of
Oh,
that.
that's
You don't
it's
forget that.
no,
When the baby
no,
comes
no.
out of
Maybe
you.
because you didn't push the baby out. How was it that moment when they handed her to you?
Oh, the best feeling in the world. Just her going on my chest, just feeling like finally,
Yeah.
like I could just take a breath, like she was there.
Yes.
And yeah, it was just wild. And then seeing my husband's reaction where he just looked at her and he was like, this is it. Like, this is what I'm made to do. Just be this little girl's dad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how would you describe to someone what it's like to become a mother?
It's a love like no other. I have had a problem sticking up for myself my whole life, but
Mhm.
I have never once had an issue sticking up for my daughter
Mhm.
or setting boundaries to benefit her.
Yeah.
It's just the most incredible blessing.
Yeah.
There's no like I just can't even put it to words until you understand it, until you go through it. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Did you find becoming a mother also healing to some extent?
yeah, I think there was a lot of chaos growing up in my house,
Mhm.
for holidays, for birthdays, things like that. And being the one that sets the tone of the house, being the one that it's up to me.
Mhm.
People can have their opinions. And like I said, I had no problem setting up the boundaries when it came to my daughter because my daughter's Christmas wasn't gonna be chaos. It
Mhm.
wasn't gonna be schlepping around to everybody's house. It
Mhm.
was gonna be calm. And it
Yeah.
was gonna be us in our PJs and we were gonna do what we wanted to do and nobody else you could tell me they didn't want me to do that, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
Um
It gives you an inner strength
yeah.
that you didn't know you had.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's unlocked
Mm-hmm.
like a superpower.
Yeah, truly.
Because you also you don't care what other
Mm-mm.
people think or say because you're going to do what's right for your kids
Yep.
and for your family. And you have a supportive partner in
Mm-hmm.
that too. That's not saying, well, we should, so he supported you in that. So
Yeah.
that's wonderful. So you have your little family. So you stopped working then.
Mm-hmm.
Was that always the plan? Had you and your husband discussed that before even getting married? How you envisioned raising children and what your roles would be?
When I was deciding what I wanted to do after I decided I wasn't going to be a nurse, I knew I wanted to find a profession where I could work not just part-time or full-time. I knew I wanted there to be some more flexibility. Because I wanted options and I knew I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom when my kids were little.
Mm-hmm.
Like before elementary school,
Mm-hmm.
my would was typically what I would say growing up. And I had been, not that there's anything wrong with it. I think every family gets to make their own decision, and
Yep.
that's the freedom about having your own family. But I had been the nanny who was there full time, from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. with a baby, a few weeks old. And I just knew that I wanted to be the one home with my baby all day.
Mm-hmm.
So my husband he grew up in a house where his mom was working full time and his dad was home when he was in elementary school on.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
so he had a different experience than I did, where my mom was full time, my mom was a full time stay at home mom, and my dad was working.
Yeah, you guys had the opposite, the
Right.
flip.
So,
But you both had a parent home. Okay.
So I knew I wanted to stay at home, and he fully supported that. I think I've always worked with kids. I've always been around kids. He'd seen me around kids, and he said that was one of the things that he loved about me was he knew I was going to be a great mom one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. So was it everything you thought staying home?
Yeah, I think that initially, it's tough. You're going through so much. My husband works nights, so there were nights, where I'm just by myself with this newborn and you don't really know what you're doing. Even though I've worked with kids my whole life, you
Yeah.
don't know what it's like until it's your own baby that you're holding.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that there was definitely a fog, there's that postpartum fog.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband was just so supportive and so just there however I needed him to be. He was able to take off work for, I think it was 7 weeks, 6
Oh, that's
weeks.
wonderful.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. He had saved, it was like 4 years of PTO and vacation time and everything and
Wow.
sick time to be able to.
That's amazing.
That's cool though.
That's wonderful. Did you experience any postpartum depression?
I definitely had postpartum anxiety, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they call it kind of like the blues now, when it's just like maybe not diagnosed depression, but you just feel down. I think I remember my 2-week appointment postpartum, week appointment postpartum. She's like, how are you doing? And I said, I'm just sad all the time.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, that's normal. Those are the hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, this cannot be normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it didn't really get better. I remember 6 months, people kept telling me, my mom kept telling me at 6 months postpartum, like your body starts feeling better. You feel more like yourself. So I was kind of looking to 6 months postpartum as this light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Not that it wasn't beautiful and amazing and everything,
Right.
but as a individual person.
Yes.
And then I got to 6 months postpartum and I still felt like I was disconnected from my own body. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, what's happening here? And I had pelvic floor therapy, and my pelvic floor therapist, I walked into her office for my appointment and she could tell something was wrong. And she's like, honey, what's wrong? And I said, oh, nothing. I'm okay. And she's like, sit down. I'm going to close the door and you're going to tell me what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And I just broke down. And she was, she didn't say anything that was crazy. I don't even remember what she said. I just remember she was so supportive, and she told me I wasn't alone and that what I was feeling wasn't normal. Like
Mm-hmm.
I needed to talk to my doctor. I needed to get lab work done.
Yeah.
Just to make sure everything was okay.
Yeah.
And everything was officially lab wise, but yeah, just having someone who didn't just dismiss me and say, this is it. Like, a million people have babies. This is just how
Yeah.
it is. Cause I think that in the generations older than mine, there wasn't that, like, you have the baby and you take care of the baby and nobody really cares about mom anymore.
Yeah.
Like there's no attention to mom. And I think my generation, my friends have made it a priority to talk to me as a person and not just like, I can't wait to see the baby. I can't wait to see the baby, but how are you? I want to see you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your generation is changing that. You're seeing each other. I think your generation's girlhood is strong.
So strong.
So strong. And I haven't talked to anyone in your generation who's a mom until you. So it just makes my heart so happy that in motherhood too, you guys are supporting each other in a completely unique way than my generation did. Because you're right, it's all about the baby and in general. I mean, of course, like my mom, or Brian was supportive of me, but that your friends are seeing you and what are you going through. And I think you guys are going to demand space for postpartum care, along with, other things, because you are right. It still is not given its due at all. And it's one of the hardest things for moms to not be seen and being told they're feeling normal when innately this isn't normal.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
Something is not right here.
Yeah, yeah. And then just to have someone say, you're right, it's not normal. And it's okay that it's not normal, but it's not normal.
Right.
So let's get you some help. That takes a weight off. Because then it's like, this is normal. This is how it is. Like, this isn't fun.
Right. It doesn't get better.
What happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened? How did you end up dealing with it or resolving it?
So I think so that was around 6 months. And then it was probably about 7 months postpartum where I just felt this shift. And I just started feeling, I think a big part of it was I was breastfeeding. And once she started eating solids, and it wasn't just me, responsible for keeping this child alive by nourishing her.
Yeah, yeah.
There was food. Other people could feed her. I could take a nap and my husband could feed her, things like that. And I think that helped a lot. And then also I became more physically active. I felt like I physically could move my body more. That was a big thing. My pelvic floor therapist, I remember saying, like, my joints, my hips, my knees, everything hurts still. Like, and she said, honey, your body is not going to go back to how it was pre-baby, until 6 months after you're done breastfeeding. Like your joints, she physically explained the anatomy and what happens to your joints when you carry a baby and give birth. And to me, that was just so relieving because it wasn't like something was wrong with me. My body was doing what it was supposed to be doing. It was different than what it was before I had her, and before I got pregnant, but it wasn't like my body wasn't doing something right, because I
Right.
think that I had that kind of from that miscarriage, where it was like, is my body not doing something right? Am I failing somehow? My body's not going back to what it was. What's wrong with my hips? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um,
And again, not talked about.
right. No, nobody, people, it's like you go and you can have a baby and you can get an epidural, or you could have a C-section, or you could not have an epidural and you can do a home birth and your doctor's going to be there. And then you'll spend a couple days and you'll go home.
Yeah.
And you could breastfeed or not breastfeed, and that's it. That's what it's like to have a baby.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like-
And there's so much more. There's so much more that happens
Mm-hmm.
after that. There should be like 10 more chapters
right.
of, okay, so we had the baby. Now there's 10 more chapters still that are not discussed.
Mhm.
And everything you just said, it's almost like it should be another profession made, just postpartum care. This is but we're going to talk to you about it before you even have the baby.
Mhm.
When you get pregnant, this is also what could possibly happen, what you could expect for the first 6 months after postpartum. And you're so right. Women are just sent home, and
I'm
you know.
shocked though that doctors aren't doing it. Like the
Mhm.
OBs are not doing that.
no, they're not
It's a
talking
trip.
about menopause either.
No, it's a trip.
No, they
No.
walk in after you have the baby. I don't know. I think, to your point, talking about it before
Yeah.
you have the baby is huge, because I don't think I got more than an hour and a half of sleep for the 48 hours I was in the hospital.
Yep.
I have no idea what people are saying to me.
Yeah.
They're bringing in folders and booklets, and it's, hi, I'm so-and-so from da. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you just said. You think I'm going to read this 100-page book about what it's like to bring a baby home
Yeah.
when I'm have to keep this child alive and take care of this? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not reading this.
No, it should absolutely be something that is in tandem
Mhm.
with your OB appointments.
Yeah.
Even if it's just 3 separate appointments just to talk about this, because that might also help with some of the postpartum depression, because so much of that could be second guessing every single thing that's happening.
Yeah.
Where if somebody was like, no, it is normal, and yes, you're going to feel like crap, and let's look further into this. Like, that alone is comforting,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just being like, oh yeah,
Just brushing it off.
brushing it off. It's like,
I don't know how this doesn't exist, because there's a body of information and
'Cause
data.
it's about women.
yep. I was just about to say that. If it was
But you're
men
right.
going through
Yeah.
it, if it was men going through it,
I don't believe that.
that's because you're a man.
Oh.
It's 100% true. It is. But I think this
Then
generation,
Fix it.
generation is going to
Yeah.
listen. I'm trying to fix menopause. No, but this generation is going to be, and I don't know about the millennial women, if they're communicating as openly as the Gen Z women about this stuff. I don't know, but I think the Gen Z women are going to be trailblazers of this,
Mm-hmm.
and you already are doing it amongst each other,
Yeah.
so, and you're going to raise children that will do it. So
Mhm.
you're going to be pivotal in this shift.
Well, I mean,
So,
if you think about it, you're coming onto our podcast and talking about it very openly and very
Yes.
comfortably and very intelligently. That's, I guess, where it starts,
Yeah.
right? If
Just having
Yeah.
those
people
conversations.
listen in
and feel not alone, and
Yeah.
they feel seen.
yeah,
So
it's okay, right?
It's
All of this is
100%
okay. This
okay.
is a biological event that
Mhm.
happens for women. It's happened for centuries, millennia.
right, but that's the point though. But it may not be okay. It may not be all wonderful. It may not be.
No, what I
Everything's
mean
perfect,
by it's a no, 100%. What I mean,
Yeah.
talking about it is okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because everything is natural, and somebody's probably gone through it in some variation of some
Yeah, it's
variation.
not you. It's not you failing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that young boys, and I should start to learn about all this stuff too. And I think young men, I think it's a partnership, right?
Mhm.
So the men need to be equipped.
It's not all on the women. No, it's a partnership.
No,
Yeah.
because your husband wouldn't have had all the answers either. It's not
Mm-mm.
like he learned anything either.
No.
Right?
He doesn't even have sisters. I was
Right.
the first girl he ever lived with. I
Mm-hmm.
taught him a lot about living with women and what that entails.
So, and he's very, probably does everything he can to be aware and understanding, but even someone like him
Mm-hmm.
was probably ill-equipped to help you, really, because other than just being there and being supportive.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So one of the things we've talked about has come up a lot, in our conversations with folks is, you know, something before you communicate it, or at least in our generation and the generations before us. As women, you're experiencing something, you're thinking about it before you really communicate it. Or do you find that at your age, are you, in your situation, are you more communicative earlier, or do you sit on things and think about it and then present it?
He's meaning like as a woman with your partner.
Yeah.
Because my generation, if like, let's say something's bothering us, we sit on it for a little bit.
Yeah, no, I bring it right up.
Yeah.
Do you think you're other women your age and your generation bring it up too, or do you think it's still person by person?
I think it's person by person. Like
Yeah.
I'm just a type A person where I'm not just going to be able to sit on something and not bring it up. Because also I want to find a solution to it. If this is something that's impacting both of us, if I'm going to be salty all day, why would I not bring it up now? You know? And I think it's also just part of like being truthful with, I can't fake it with most people, but I cannot fake it with my husband. So,
Well, it sounds like
Yeah.
you're in an authentic relationship with your
Yes.
husband, so
Yes.
that really gives you the space to do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's an important part is
Yeah.
he's made it very, very like welcoming to bring up
okay.
any concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you probably have a friendship base,
100%. Yeah.
and that's pivotal.
How
Mhm.
long?
In a
Yeah,
marriage.
you may have said earlier. I apologize, but how long were you together before you did get married? So how long did you establish your friendship?
We were dating for 2.5 years before we got engaged. And then I would say it was just shy of 3 years when we got married. So
Yeah. So you had a strong base, which is
Mhm.
so important. So as you're still a stay-at-home mom?
I actually just a few weeks ago accepted a position working twice a month at a hospital
Oh.
with adults.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very exciting. But up until then, now
Mhm.
you were, so she's a year and a half?
A year and a half. Yeah.
During that time when you were home, did you encounter any, not judgment from peers, but any vibes about you being a stay-at-home mom and not working?
Yeah, I think so, especially because I had a master's degree. I had only worked I found out the day before I started working at the pediatric clinic that I was pregnant again. So I had not even worked for a full year before I gave birth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people were kind of like, well, what's the point in getting a degree if you're just gonna stay at home? But I think too, there are a lot of millennial women. I don't know. I don't want to speak for anybody, but from what I've observed, a lot of millennial women think, you know, you have the freedom to go back to work and also to kind of prove yourself. Like, we don't just have babies and stay home. We can get married when we're 35 and have baby then or not, and then go back to work or not. And I think there was that push because I don't know. I think there's always been judgment against stay-at-home moms. I think my brother just sent me a video of Andrew Schultz being interviewed, and someone asked him, are there any professions you feel like don't get enough credit? And he said stay-at-home moms, because his wife just had a baby. And I think that that's something that men don't realize either until their partner, their person they love, goes through it. My husband didn't know about breastfeeding, having a baby, stay-at-home moms until I went through it.
Yeah. Yeah. No one knows.
No.
They don't.
You do as a husband, though. I can say, I'm sure that you're the home manager, right? She's the home manager.
Yeah.
Gets the kids out to school, gets the food. You know, I don't want to pipe you
Everything.
into
Everything.
just the female roles, but everything. Yeah.
Everything.
The chauffeur, the taxi driver, the everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, to your point, your husband didn't know, and you probably didn't fully understand until their partner is in that role, living that role. So did you have friends that kind of you felt some judgment from, or was it just more women in general?
I think women. I think my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she really drilled in my sister and myself to get a degree that you can always have a job. You don't need to, because she went through a divorce and she hadn't worked. So there was a lot of pressure to come, how do you come out of that?
Yeah.
And so I think for us, when we were in high school and in college, and when she knew I was going to get married young, a big thing was get a job or get a degree where you can always have a job. You always have that job security and a job that pays where you can live.
Right.
And yeah, so I think that was a little bit of it. I think we had some family members who were going back to work and went back to work full time. So I think there was a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
I think too, just something that I've accepted, because I even have a doctor tell me, I went in for an allergy appointment and she was like, I just don't understand why you won't just stop breastfeeding so that you can get on the medication to help you feel better. And I'm like, well, it's my eyes itching and my nose running. It's not like I'm, you
can't breathe.
right.
Yeah,
It's not debilitating.
Yeah.
I've also had allergies my whole life, so this isn't anything new.
Right.
And I was so bothered by the fact that she said that to me while my daughter's in the room, by the way.
Yeah.
So, and I went home and I was talking about it with my husband and I said, her priorities are just different than mine.
Yeah.
She probably went back to work, quickly after having a baby because that was what she wanted to do. And she has the freedom to make that decision. But what I want to do is stay home. And so she's not going to get my perception.
Right.
There's also no point in that. And I don't need her to, because she can tell me whatever she wants. And then I choose whether or not I'm going to listen to it. And I think that with that judgment, it's like, I know I'm doing what's right for our family. I'm doing what I want to do every single day. I am grateful that I'm able to stay home, that we have that ability to.
Yeah. I think that, I think women are our worst enemies when it comes to this, the stay-at-home mom versus working mom thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I look forward to the day when it doesn't exist, this wedge. And I think you just said it. It's different for every family, and each woman has a different need.
Mm-hmm.
And some women need to go back to work. That's what they need to feel fulfilled. And some women need to stay home because they want to be home with their children. And there has to be mutual respect among women.
Mm-hmm.
We need to stop judging each other for that. We have to support each other, because why do you care?
Right.
Why do you care if one woman stays home and one woman works? Unless for the working woman, is the woman who stays home making you feel, do you have some guilt?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the stay-at-home mom's fault. That's something you need to resolve in yourself. And as the stay-at-home mom, do you have guilt for not working? And that's not the working mom's fault. That's something you need to resolve within yourself.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, this wedge has been going on really since women started going to work in a career-based way in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And then society, of course, fed to women, you can do it all. And then now everyone's burnt out.
Yeah.
But we've been this infighting has got to stop. I would say it's one thing that we still have not overcome.
I agree.
As women. And again, I hope your generation takes care of that too. Add it to the list on your planner.
We're on it. To-do list.
The to-do list. So from your generation's perspective as a mother and looking at the world, how do you feel about raising your daughter? Do you have higher anxiety, do you think? Does your generation maybe as parents have higher anxiety with the way you see the world and being able to want to be protective and keep things safe for your children, but also wanting to give them the freedom to chase their dreams? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think my husband, I fully thought I was having a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And when we found out I was having a girl, he was in denial for a solid 2 days. Just
He's my guy.
Oof. Yeah, you guys would probably have a lot to talk about.
Have him pick you up. We'll talk.
But yeah, he was just, also he has all brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So there was just a lot of unknown.
Yeah.
And also he's very protective of me, even more protective of our daughter.
Of course.
And I think there were things that I just knew as a woman that I didn't want for her. We don't talk about her body as a physical appearance. We tell her she's strong, she can do it, things like that. We don't talk about, oh, you look at your belly's big. Oh, this shirt's too small. Like, I have shifted in the way we talk about food. We don't talk, oh, you're eating so much. That's something that we've told our family members, and some of them who are a little bit older have had a hard time adjusting. And we say, this is something that you're going to do when you're around her. And that has been because I grew up, I had a very unhealthy relationship with food, I would say. And I just don't want that for her. And I know that I don't want her scared to eat or scared to, you know, tell me she's hungry, even if she just had lunch because she's going through a growth spurt and needs more food.
Right.
So yeah, there are things that I have taken from my childhood that I just, you know, want to change for
You're
her.
adjusting. Yeah, I think that well, Gen X grew up in the diet culture. Like our moms were always on a diet. And then we were supposed to be on a diet and thin. And that was really, you know, that's happiness. That's what we were.
That's all you need.
Fed, quote unquote, fed. Just need to be thin and everything will be good. So I think, again, that's something you guys are changing.
I think that's remarkable, though. I think that what you just said is remarkable, and people should listen to that and rewind and listen again. Using different language in support of your child's self-perception and how they feel and view the world. Man, I'm blown away.
It's so empowering.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
so empowering. And I love that, you know, you're strong, like all of that. So and do you find that in your, like, you have what, a couple mom friends, right?
Yeah.
Do they do this around the same, do they have the same outlook?
I would say I have some, like my triplet friends who their cousin that they're really close with is the same way. They visited me and met my daughter. And they said the same things. Like, you know, when they would say, you're so strong, you're so smart, you're so kind. Instead of just like, oh, look at you, you're so pretty, you know, things like that. That's just, people might, you know, roll their eyes and say we're being too soft or whatever, but these are things that if you grew up with this, and I grew up with people always commenting on how skinny I was. And then, you know, even if I ate, like, oh, wow, you can really eat a lot. And you still say that, you still stay that thin. And that you just, as a little girl, you're just taking all of this stuff in. And then when you gain weight, when you go to college and you think something's wrong with you, I wasn't eating because I thought, what am I, like, I'm supposed to be this thin girl.
It fed into that box that you grew up with as you were thin and could eat whatever you want and you were thin. So then when your body started to become more of a woman's body and it adjusted naturally, normally, you panicked.
Yeah.
Because you were also, you were having to leave that identity that you had grown up with through your formative years, not understanding this is all normal. This is all healthy. This is what's supposed to happen. No, I mean, even raising my daughter, I had to watch myself because I would catch myself saying, and I know I said way more about, like, probably what I try to do is take the healthy, be healthy. This is healthier to eat. This is healthier to do. Being active is healthy. So, because I had an eating disorder, so I tried to be careful about thin or eating or you shouldn't eat that. It was more, this is a healthier thing to eat.
Yeah.
But even me, as a Gen X mom, was not at the level that you're at. I mean, that is amazing what you're doing.
Yeah, they're advancing it.
You're
further.
way advancing that, and it's just so commendable. But then I'm sure there are times you still say you look pretty or that dress looks pretty.
For sure. It's
but it's okay to be pretty
She's
too.
not dressed in all gray all the time.
Right. It's not that we never do that. And I think too, my husband sees how important it is for him to say these things to her. And yeah, I think that's huge. She's gonna see him and, you know, I mean, she loves him so much. I am just not really, I'm not chop liver, but she loves me too. But she loves her dad, and this thing, like, her whole world lights up. And for him to say these things to her about her being strong and about her being brave and about her being beautiful, all of those things, that's huge.
To have the most important man in her life saying these things, because it also teaches her what she should expect from a partner, because a girl mirrors a lot of that. If they weren't given it at all, they're looking for that in their partner. But if they see their father, if their father treats them with the utmost respect, then that's what they're going to expect from a partner. And then whoever they date is going to have to rise to the occasion, or else he's not an option.
Right.
So it starts this young. you know, and the communication and the talking, everything you guys are doing.
Have you seen a shift in him now that he has a daughter?
Oh, yeah.
As a guy?
Yeah, I think so. I think that now it's like he even said, he's like, I couldn't even imagine having a boy now that I have a girl. I just want another daughter, you know?
Oh, wow.
Which is so funny because he was like, we're having 3 boys, just like where I came from, set on being, and now he's so girl dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Girl dads. I mean, that whole concept has been so just celebrated. And I love that.
It's so cool.
It's the coolest
What
thing.
has been celebrated?
Girl dad. Because girl dad wasn't a celebrated thing with me growing up. Everyone, you're supposed to have a boy. Not just my family, but in general, like sons.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's girls. You know, but now it's like I think the millennials are the
That's
ones
funny.
that really started the girl dad phenomenon.
I think so too.
Yeah, and brought that into society. And then you guys, it's just you're running with it. So it's so exciting. So then now you're going to start working 2 times a month. That's such a nice way to ease a little bit of your profession back into your family life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very doable. It's very manageable. My husband's going to be the one who's there with her. So that was huge for me.
Yeah.
And I actually interviewed 4 months after she was born. I interviewed for a position that was part-time, that was twice a week. Got the job on the spot at the same hospital. And it was just a different floor. And I was so sick to my stomach. The whole elevator ride down. And I knew it just wasn't the time. And I remember when you were talking about feeling guilty that, oh, you should go back to work. I felt that pressure from some outside voices. And, you know, oh, just go interview. Just go see what happens. See what happens. You'll know, you know, just go back. It's not that much. It's not that much. And I just could not do it. And I talked to the director. She was very understanding, supportive. She said, you will never regret this time home with her.
Yep.
And I knew it just wasn't the time. And then, you know, here we are almost a year and a half later and a year and change later. And I know that this is more for me. This 2 to 3 times a month is very, very manageable. It's still hard. I still cried.
Yeah, I'm
the
sure.
first day. And I'm sure there'll be days where I cry. But I think something that my therapist has said to me too is that, you know, this relationship and kind of a healthy attachment that we have to each other is great. But me being away from her will give her some autonomy. And that's helped me a lot because she was like, one day she'll probably go to elementary school and be gone from you full time. And is that going to be the first time where she's away from you all day long? Like that's going to be a big jump for her. That's going to be a big adjustment.
Right.
And she's right. She's like, this is a good baby step. It's also giving her uninterrupted time with her dad. Yeah. That is so special.
Yeah. Well, and it's true. It's incorporating a little bit of that balance. And that's what preschool does too. Preschool is that first step where I'll never forget taking our oldest son to preschool for the first time. I think I cried that whole day.
Yeah.
But it's 2.5 hours, you know, and it's that, but then you adjust and then you're like, yeah, you're going to preschool. I want that 2.5 hours.
I don't care if you're sick.
Go. But it's those firsts. I remember when they handed our oldest son to us, I looked at my mom and said, I don't know how I'm going to send him to kindergarten. I'm never going to send him to kindergarten. But then once kindergarten came, we kind of grow with our children, you know, so when they get to that phase, you're like, okay, you know, it's hard the first days, but then you're like, okay. But to your point, you can only raise your children once. I tell people that. You can't go back and redo any of it.
Right.
It's a one-time shot. So you can always go back to work. You can. And maybe you won't have the same title, or maybe you'll be starting an entry level again, or you won't be making as much money, but you still have the potential to work back up to that. You can never, ever, ever go back again to raise your children. So it's what's comfortable for you as a person. And then the people around you need to respect that. And there's no judgment. Whatever anyone feels works for them. But you said it in your gut. You knew what worked for you and your family. Yeah. And you knew that first thing didn't, because that wasn't the path. And then the path was presented to you a year and a half later and that's that felt right. Yeah. So it's trusting that. And as her mother, you trusted that. And as a wife, you trusted that. And as you as a woman, you trusted that. And then the right thing presented itself. So, you know, just the fact that you already have that wisdom and that trust in yourself is amazing.
Thank you.
Honestly. Were you going to say something? I'm
I
sorry.
forget what it was. Yeah. No, I think the concept for me is that I always tell younger parents, it's everything you go through gets you ready for the next step. So you
Yes.
get pregnant, you've got 9 to 10 months, 40 weeks, right, to figure out what's going to happen. And then it's different. And then you have more time to get ready for when they go to preschool. Everything just is constantly preparing you for the next phase.
Like, I'm sure you can never imagine taking her to college.
Oh my gosh. I cry. What were we watching the other day? We were watching a movie, and I think they asked for, it was a wedding. It was a wedding scene. The dad was walking the daughter down the aisle, and I'm bawling my eyes out.
Yes.
Everything hits differently when you're a parent.
Oh, yes.
Everything. I'm like,
everything.
oh my gosh. It's
everything
crazy.
in life.
Yeah.
Everything. And then like I no longer could watch anything where children die.
Oh no.
Or my tolerance for all of that every year went down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I used to not be scared to fly. Now I'm scared to fly. All those things, because your whole perspective changes, you know.
Yeah.
And when a children's missing, or so, you automatically feel what that mother's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's your whole perspective absolutely changes. So, but the fact that you have been able to already prioritize your family so strongly, with your family so young, is only going to pay off dividends as the years go on, because you guys are going to have outside forces that you aren't even expecting.
Yeah.
And so you guys are already building this strength together, and that's I'm sure your husband is just such an amazing supportive partner in all of that.
He is.
Or else it wouldn't be working.
No.
You know.
Yeah, they talk about mom gut, trust your mom gut.
Yeah.
And that's something I always tell my friends. Even, your mom might tell you she did something a different way, or if you are, there were so many, the first day in the hospital, I had something, my mom gut was telling me something, but I was doubting myself because the nurses were like, oh, this is just your first baby,
Yep.
But you just trust that and you lean into it. But I think dads it's not really discussed as much, because I think maybe dads would get made fun of if they brought it up. But I think dads have kind of like a dad gut too.
Yeah.
And I think that something for me is, I've always told my husband, like, if you feel a certain way about something and I feel something differently, like, I want you to feel comfortable, not just because I'm the mom, I get the final say when it comes to XYZ, her sleep or whatever it is, her schedule, her routine. I want you to feel comfortable talking to me about it and us having a conversation, because we're partners in this.
Yeah. It's true.
I'm laughing because you're spot on. We do that. I think even as recently in the last week, when something happened, I'm like, you're crazy. We need to get him home or this or that. And it's my dad gut, kicks in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to honor it.
And and learning how to parent together is a whole skill that is also not talked about. Just because you love someone or are friends with them and choose to marry them does not mean that parenting together is just going to come naturally.
Right.
And there has to be that communication and that give and take. And you're right. The father needs to have the freedom to give his opinion on everything that's going on as well. Now, a lot of guys they don't want to be bothered. They're like, no, whatever you decide, at least in my generation, whatever you decide is fine. But the freedom still needs to be there where they don't feel they don't have a voice, because I have witnessed that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. Eventually things are falling apart.
Yeah.
So, and there is a dad gut. I will say for him, he definitely right away taught me, because I had that mom strength and everything, but he even amped it up more of, no, screw that. We're going to do this. We're going to challenge this. He's really good about no. Even when I would be like, well, I don't know. He's like, no, that's weird. This is not happening.
Right.
And
I hate status quo.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, but just having that extra person that has your back, that's like, we're going to confront this. And that person's like, that's right, we are. And here we go. And that's part of the strength of the family.
Yeah.
So now you did mention you have a therapist.
I do. Yeah. It's been kind of a journey. I thought after the miscarriage, I should see a therapist, but it's hard to find somebody who takes insurance, accepts new clients.
Yes.
What the copay is, calling, scheduling. If I was working full time, so my availability was limited, everyone could only see a therapist after 5,
Yeah.
So it just didn't make it a priority. And then my it was Thanksgiving. It was our first Thanksgiving with the baby. My husband was working. I had put her to bed and I was sobbing for 2 hours and I didn't really know why. And holidays, I mentioned, were always kind of hard in my family growing up. And that was the moment I realized I had stuff that I still needed to work on, that I didn't want to pass to my daughter. I didn't want to be crying on holidays.
Yeah.
I wanted to make good memories on holidays. And I was like, all right, tomorrow morning, I'm looking up therapists. And I had 2 who were not the best fit for me. Now I have my current one who, that's the other thing, is it can feel really discouraging when you finally get the time, you finally find an appointment, you go to the appointment, and then you're like, this person isn't great for me.
Yeah.
So if anybody's going through that, I encourage you to try again. I had to go, my third one was finally the right fit. And she has been so incredible. And I just couldn't, I've been seeing her now for about a year and a month. And one of her things that she says is, if it's not good for my daughter, then it's not good for Grace. And if it's good for my daughter, then it is good for Grace.
Yeah.
And because as a mom, you put your kids first.
Yeah.
And so having that as just kind of something that I run my decisions through helps me so much.
Honoring yourself as much as you honor your daughter. Yeah.
Which is so hard to do as a mom.
So hard. But the fact that you are starting to learn how to do it at this age is amazing. It's amazing.
It's just, it makes it easy when it's on my daughter. If it's going to negatively impact my daughter, then I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes it easy.
Why would I treat myself that way? If I wouldn't let her be exposed to that, why would I let myself
Well, your
be exposed
whole
to that?
world shifts. You start to see the world through the lens of how it does impact your kids and your family. And that's how you start to navigate things. And things become clear.
Yeah.
Much clearer.
But then also loving yourself enough as much.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Holding yourself with that value.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful. That's a good therapist.
I'm getting it tattooed on my arm. I tell my friends too who are moms, and they all say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Cause it just helps. It helps simplify things that feel really complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful. That's such a great message. And, gosh, I'm so hopeful and just filled with joy about the women in your generation. I really think you guys are just going to continue to positively change things for the women coming up behind you and for each other. And it just and us Gen Xers are going to try to change things for menopause ahead of you.
Yes, thank you.
That's what we're working on. Now, before I ask what your 5-year goal is, I'm going to check to see if he has any questions, because I always cut it short. And he's like, I had a question.
The only question I have is, I can't remember, something that comes up a lot is a lot of folks, especially your age, they feel very disenfranchised with the corporate world and feel somewhat trapped that they have to choose this corporate path. But you had mentioned, and your mom's advice to you was very good. I can't remember what it was, but it was, find something you can do that allows you to afford where you live, but also go back to work or something like that. What was that advice? Because I think it was pretty good advice.
Yeah, she said to get a degree where you can get a job where you have job security. It's not going to be a job that's going to get taken away, especially now with tech and everything. And then also to get a job where you can have a livable wage, just with your bachelor's degree, which funny enough, I didn't, because I then had to go to grad school, but I went straight in. But yeah, that was it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think so. For our listeners, I think it's more of you don't have to go the corporate path. You can get a degree where you have that flexibility, because if you picked up and moved to Washington, D.C., you could probably get a job. You could move to North Dakota and get a job within your field. So I think that's the advice, right? You don't need to be stuck in the corporate trap. Find something that offers flexibility and is something you can do anywhere.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I hope I'm done having babies. I hope we've had I don't know how many it is, but I hope we've completed our family with kids.
Never say never. You know what we went through.
Yeah.
They're called bonus babies.
Bonus babies. And I see myself, I don't know, just completely in love with my husband and enjoying. There's no, like big goal. It's really just to have a steady, happy family full
That's
of
a
joy.
big goal. That's a
big goal.
wonderful
Yeah.
goal. And it's really, really all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a wonderful goal. It's perfect. And I have to go back to that. I'm just so happy that you found your friend tribe, your women friend tribe, because it's vital.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes, it's just those certain people as you go through life, and then you gather another one and another one, but it's not huge.
Right.
It's a quality thing. And I always tell people, if you can count on your hand true friends, you're rich.
Yeah.
But to find those women that are supportive, that you can talk to, and that are also leading authentic lives where you can be real with them, it's gold. So I'm after everything, especially you went through in high school, I'm just so happy that you found your people.
Thank you. Me too.
It's so
I couldn't do it
important.
without them. I really couldn't.
Yeah. So, and I for our listeners, full disclosure, we've known Grace since I think we met, you were 14.
Mm-hmm.
Ninth
14.
grade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was just a precious treasure then, and the sweetest. And it's overwhelmingly moving for me to see where you are now in your life. I'm gonna get emotional.
Thank you.
But I could not be happier for you. I honestly
you.
couldn't. You are have grown into such a wonderful young woman, young mother, young wife. But the wisdom you carry within you that you have gotten from yourself is, along with the people that have supported you, I'm just thrilled that you have that. And I just think that you have so many good things ahead of you in life.
Thank you.
And you are just so far ahead. You just don't even know. There's things that you already have discovered and know that have taken women in my generation till they're my age to learn. So I'm just so happy for you about that. But I could not be happier for you. And I, if I can be so bold, I'm so proud of you.
Aw,
I agree.
you.
I agree. I'm very
know.
happy for you. I'm super proud of you. I think
Yeah.
you're just a remarkable person, and keep going.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
And we're so excited to see where everything leads. And maybe in 5 years you'll come back, or 3 years, or whenever you want, and we can hear where you're
Gotta
at.
bring your
and-
husband.
Yeah.
I like
if
this
you
guy
would like
already.
to come on. Yeah. I think those two need to talk.
Yeah, we'll hang out. You guys go unpackage things.
Yeah, unpackage. Oh my gosh, Brian. But again, thank you for coming on and sharing your story, because I know that there are a lot of, especially young women out there, that can probably relate to a lot of what you talked about, a lot. And so it always helps because then they feel seen and not
Yeah.
alone, and that there's hope.
It's a
Yeah.
great episode for people your age, even her age and our age, because
Yeah.
you don't need to hit a certain point or age to have some wisdom and introspective thought and awareness.
You can always reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if you are our age, you can still take a lot of the advice you had to share. So thank you.
Thank you.
And for honoring us with your life story,
Thank you.
where it
was
is
much
so
fun.
far.
Yeah, thank you. It's cool.
And thank you to our listeners. We welcome all questions and comments, even those crazy bad ones sometimes you guys like to share with us. But thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.